The spoon clattered against porcelain, and every diplomat in the room froze. Queen Velithara of the Kithari Empire had ruled 17 star systems for 43 cycles. She had negotiated peace treaties while standing in the wreckage of battlecruisers. She had stared down warlords who thought her compound eyes showed weakness. She had never flinched when lesser beings tried to intimidate her with their size or their weapons or their screaming. But the human waitress had just collapsed. One moment the young woman had been refilling water glasses with the mechanical precision expected at the Galactic Summit's opening dinner. The next, her tray crashed to the marble floor and she crumpled like her bones had simply stopped working. The Royal Guard moved first. Captain Thren crossed the distance in 3 silent strides, his primary arms already scanning for threats while his secondary arms reached for the human. Protocol demanded he secure the Queen. Training told him to identify the attack vector. Instinct made him catch the falling woman before her head struck the corner of the service cart. "Medic," he said, voice level, holding the unconscious human against his chest with the care usually reserved for handling unstable explosives. Queen Velithara rose from her seat. Around her, delegates from the Confederation, the Hegemony, and the Coalition shifted nervously. Humans had only joined the galactic community 6 standard years ago. They were still proving themselves, still earning their place at tables like this. And now one of their service staff had become a medical emergency at the most important diplomatic function of the decade. "Is she breathing?" the Queen asked, moving toward Thren without waiting for her own guards to clear a path. The captain's membrane flickered across his eyes, his species equivalent of a blink. "Yes, Your Majesty," pulse rapid. Temperature elevated. A human man in the same service uniform pushed through the crowd of frozen dignitaries. His name tag read, James, Floor Manager. His face had gone the color of recycled protein paste. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. She said she felt fine. She passed all her health screenings this morning. How long has she been working today?" The Queen's voice cut through his panic like a scalpel. James's mouth opened. Closed. "Since 0600, Your Majesty. We needed extra staff for the summit, and Sarah volunteered. 14 hours. The Queen's antennae twitched. Has she consumed food or water during that time? We had a 15-minute break at noon. 8 hours ago." His hands shook. Queen Velithara had not survived the Court of Thorns by being blind to physiological stress. She had studied every species that might attend these talks, including humanity. She knew their bodies were catastrophically inefficient compared to most spacefaring races. She knew they required constant fuel and hydration. She knew they pushed themselves past sensible limits with disturbing regularity. She also knew that most species at this summit viewed them as weak, fragile, unsuited for the harsh realities of interstellar politics. If this incident became a scandal, it would undo months of careful diplomatic groundwork. The human medics arrived with equipment that looked primitive compared to Kithari medical technology. They worked quickly, efficiently, checking vitals and murmuring to each other in the clipped shorthand of professionals managing a crisis. "Dehydration and hypoglycemia," one announced. "She needs fluids and rest." "Take her to the medical bay," Thren said, already preparing to hand her over. No, a human child, no more than 6 or 7 standard years old, stood at the edge of the crowd. She wore a small version of the summit staff uniform, probably brought by a parent working the event. Her hair was pulled back in 2 neat sections that humans called braids. Her face held an expression that reminded Velithara of young soldiers before their first battle, frightened but refusing to show it. "That's my sister," the child said, voice steady despite the tremor in her small hands. "She was saving money for my medicine. She took the extra shifts because I need treatments. Don't be mad at her. She was just trying to help me." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to collapse a star. James reached for the child. "Emma, you shouldn't be—" "Is it true?" Queen Velithara interrupted, looking directly at the little human. "Your sister worked herself to collapse to afford your medical care?" Emma's chin lifted. "The medicine costs a lot. Our insurance doesn't cover it all. Sarah said she'd make it work." "She always makes it work." Velithara's primary stomach twisted in a way she hadn't felt since watching her own daughter recover from poison meant for the throne. The Kithari had eliminated medical debt 3 centuries ago. The concept that a being would work until their body failed to save a sibling seemed both horrifying and strangely familiar. Humans, she had learned, were walking contradictions. "Captain Thren," she said quietly, "what is our medic's assessment of the sister's condition?" "Stable, Your Majesty. She requires rest, hydration, and nutritional supplementation. No permanent damage expected." The Queen's antennae swept forward, the Kithari gesture of decision. Then we will provide it. Both the immediate care and the medicine this child requires. She looked at James. You will ensure the sister receives full pay for today despite her early departure. You will also implement mandatory rest periods for all staff, beginning immediately. But Emma stepped forward, small face serious. You don't have to do that, Your Majesty.
We'll pay you back. Sarah always pays debts.
Veltara tilted her head, studying the tiny human who had somehow taken control of this moment without raising her voice or demanding anything. Tell me, child, when you are fully grown, what do you wish to become? Emma didn't hesitate. A doctor, so other kids don't have to worry about affording medicine. The Queen's mandibles clicked softly, the Kithari equivalent of a smile. I suspect you will achieve that goal. She glanced at her advisors, then at the assembled delegates who had witnessed this entire exchange. In fact, I would like to discuss establishing a medical scholarship program between our empires. Perhaps we could begin with one very determined candidate. She turned back to the crowd, noting how they watched her, judging her response to this disruption. Dinner will resume in 20 minutes, she announced. I suggest we all take this opportunity to examine how we treat those who serve us. The strength of an empire is not measured only by its warships. As the crowd began to disperse, Emma reached out and gently touched her unconscious sister's hand. Thren, still holding Sarah with the same careful intensity he'd used for a diplomatic hostage, looked down at the child. She will recover, he said, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. Emma nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She always does. Sarah's the strongest person I know. Queen Veltara watched the medics prepare to transport the Waitress. She thought about strength and what it meant to different species. The Kithari valued physical prowess and strategic thinking. The Confederation prized technological advancement. The hegemony respected military might. But this human had collapsed from working herself past breaking to save her sibling, and somehow that felt like a different kind of strength entirely, the kind that might be more dangerous than any weapon. The medical bay occupied the third floor of the summit complex, a sterile space designed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies of 37 member species. Sarah regained consciousness 17 minutes after her collapse, her first words a slurred apology about the spilled water glasses. Emma sat beside her bed, holding her hand with both of hers, while James hovered nearby looking like a man calculating how to explain this incident to 12 different supervisors. Queen Veltara arrived without announcement, her personal guards spacing themselves throughout the room with practiced efficiency. Thren took position near the door, his stance relaxed but alert. The human doctor, Marcus Chen, according to his identification, straightened immediately, nearly dropping his datapad in the process. Your Majesty, I apologize for the earlier disruption. How is the patient? Chen glanced at Sarah, who had gone rigid in her bed, eyes wide with mortification. Recovering. The dehydration was severe, but we've administered fluids and nutrients. She needs rest and a proper meal plan. And honestly, she needs to stop working double shifts. I was fine, Sarah whispered, her voice hoarse. I just got dizzy for a second. You collapsed, Emma said firmly, in the tone of someone who had delivered this lecture before, like you did last month. And the month before. Not now. It's always not now. But you keep doing it. Human-sibling dynamics she had learned operated on their own complex protocols. She approached the bed, noting how Sarah instinctively tried to sit up straighter despite her obvious weakness. Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. I should have eaten something before my shift. I should have hydrated better. You should have been given adequate breaks and working conditions, Veltara interrupted. The failure was not yours. Sarah blinked. But I ruined the dinner. I disrupted the summit. You demonstrated the limits of human physiology under stress. This is valuable data. The Queen's antennae tilted forward slightly. Your sister informed me that you worked these additional hours to afford her medical treatments. What did you say? The truth, Emma said, jutting her chin out. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when you're working yourself sick.
We always manage.
You collapsed in front of the Queen of the Kithari Empire. Girls. Chen's voice carried quiet authority. Perhaps we could all take a breath. Veltahara raised one primary hand, a gesture requesting silence. The room obeyed immediately. I have questions, she said, looking at Sarah. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel. You have colonized 17 planets. You have developed artificial intelligence capable of navigating dimensional space. Why, then, does a citizen of Earth struggle to afford medical care for a child? James shifted uncomfortably. It was Emma who answered. Because insurance is complicated and medicine is expensive, and some diseases are rare so the treatments cost more and regular people have to choose between rent and medicine sometimes, the casual way the child described this calculation made Veltara's secondary stomach clench. On Kyther, she said slowly, medical care is considered a basic function of civilization, like breathable atmosphere or drinkable water. The concept of charging individuals for their own biological maintenance seems, she searched for a diplomatic term, inefficient. It's awful, Emma said bluntly. But Sarah says we work with what we have. Sarah finally found her voice. Your Majesty, I appreciate your concern, but we don't need charity. I just made a mistake today. I'll be more careful. By working longer hours with fewer breaks. By being smarter about it. Veltara's mandibles clicked softly. Stubbornness, it seemed, was a universal trait. She had watched soldiers refuse medical treatment for wounds that should have killed them. She had seen diplomats continue negotiations through fever and exhaustion. Pride made fools of every species. But this human's pride was protecting a child, not an ego. Dr. Chen, the Queen said, turning to the physician. What is the nature of the sister's condition? The doctor glanced at Emma, then Sarah, clearly weighing patient confidentiality against a direct question from a head of state. Sarah gave a tiny nod. Emma has a rare autoimmune disorder, Dr. Chen explained. It's manageable with treatment, but the medication is expensive and requires regular monitoring. Without it, her body attacks its own tissue. The prognosis with treatment is excellent. Without it, he didn't finish the sentence. And the cost of this treatment? Approximately 3,000 credits monthly. Sarah's insurance covers 60%. Belthara did the mental calculation. The flower arrangement for tonight's dinner had cost 18,000. I see. She looked at Sarah, at the exhaustion carved into a face too young to carry such weight. What is your profession when not working extra shifts as a waitress? I'm a student, third-year xenobiology at the university. I work service jobs to cover tuition and expenses. Xenobiology. The Queen's interest sharpened. What is your focus? Comparative physiology across species? How different evolutionary paths lead to different biological solutions to similar problems? Sarah's voice gained strength as she spoke about her studies. I want to work in cross-species medicine eventually, help develop treatments that work for multiple physiologies. Veltara's antennae swept back, the Cathari expression of pleased surprise. That is a field with few practitioners and enormous need. Why did you choose it? Sarah glanced at Emma. When Em got sick, I realized how lucky we were that human medicine had advanced enough to treat her. But what about species we've just encountered? What about diseases that cross species barriers? Someone needs to figure that out. Someone like you. Maybe. If I can finish school, and you believe you can finish school while working yourself to collapse, I'll do what I have to do. Emma needs her medicine. I need to graduate. Those aren't negotiable. No, Velthara agreed. They are not. She turned to Thren, who had been listening with the focused intensity of a guard cataloging potential threats. Captain, what was our budget allocation for tomorrow's reception? Thren didn't need to check his datapad. 47,000 credits, Your Majesty. Cancel it. Transfer the funds to establish a medical scholarship for Miss Sarah. She paused. Williams, Sarah Williams. The scholarship will cover her remaining tuition, her sister's medical expenses, and a living stipend sufficient to eliminate the need for additional employment. The Queen's voice carried the ring of royal decree. In exchange, upon graduation, she will serve a 3-year residency in the Cathari Medical Corps, studying cross-species physiology. The room went silent. Sarah stared at her, mouth open. Emma's eyes went round as moons. James looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Even Dr. Chen seemed at a loss for words. Your Majesty, Sarah finally managed. I can't. That's too much. I couldn't possibly. Can you continue your current path without collapsing again? Sarah's mouth closed. Can you maintain your academic performance while working 60-hour weeks? No response. Can you ensure your sister receives consistent care under your current financial situation? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Then accept the scholarship. Finish your education. Help solve the medical challenges that plague our expanding community of worlds. Velthara leaned closer, her voice dropping to something almost gentle. Your sister was correct. You are strong. But strength without support is simply slower breaking. Emma launched herself at the Queen before anyone could stop her, small arms wrapping around Veltara's middle in a gesture of pure gratitude. The guards tensed. Fren moved. Velthara raised both primary hands, halting them mid-step. She looked down at the crying child clinging to her ceremonial robes, feeling the tremors of relief shaking through such a small frame. Slowly, carefully, she lowered one hand to rest on Emma's head. "Your sister will be cared for," she said, "and you will receive your medicine. This I promise." Emma nodded against her, voice muffled. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Sarah was crying now, too, tears streaming down her face as the weight of months, maybe years, of crushing stress finally cracked. "I'll work hard, I promise I'll make this worth it." "You already have," Velthara said. "You demonstrated the fundamental principle that separates civilized beings from barbarians. You protected something more important than yourself. That is the foundation of everything we are trying to build here." She gently extracted herself from Emma's grip and turned to face James, who had gone pale again. "You will implement new labor standards for all Summit staff immediately. No worker will exceed 8 hours without a minimum 30-minute break. No worker will be scheduled for more than 10 hours in any 24-hour period. Those found violating these standards will answer to me personally." James nodded so hard his neck might have sustained whiplash. "Yes, Your Majesty. Absolutely, Your Majesty. And you will distribute this month's reception budget surplus among the current staff as hazard pay for working under inadequate conditions." "Your Majesty, that's not necessary." The Queen's antennae snapped forward, cutting him off with the Kithari equivalent of a sharp look. "I will decide what is necessary. Am I understood?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Chen stepped forward, finding his professional voice. "Your Majesty, if I may, the scholarship is incredibly generous, but Sarah still needs at least 24 hours of rest before resuming any activities. And she will be provided quarters here in the medical wing until Dr. Chen clears her for release." Veltara looked at Emma. "You will stay with your sister. Captain Thren will arrange for your parents to be notified and granted access." Emma nodded, still sniffling, but looking more peaceful than she had since entering the room. The Queen moved toward the door, her guards falling into formation around her. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the two sisters, one exhausted in a medical bed, one small and fierce beside her. "Miss Williams," she said, and Sarah straightened instinctively. "When you join the medical corps, I expect great things. Do not disappoint me." "I won't, Your Majesty. I swear it." Then she was gone, her retinue flowing out behind her like a tide. In the hallway, Thren fell into step beside her. "The other delegates will question the expenditure," he said quietly. "Some will call it favoritism toward the humans. Let them." The Queen's antennae swept back in satisfaction. They witnessed a young being work herself to the point of physical collapse to save her sibling. If they cannot understand why that deserves support, they have learned nothing about humanity's value to our alliance. And if they push back, then I will remind them that the strength of an empire is measured not by how it treats its powerful, but by how it protects its vulnerable. She glanced at her captain. "You caught her before she struck her head. That was well done. Training, Your Majesty. Training teaches you to secure the monarch first. Instinct made you catch a falling stranger." She clicked her mandibles softly. "Perhaps we could all benefit from trusting our instincts more." They walked in comfortable silence for a moment before Thren spoke again. The human child showed no fear when addressing you. "Most species train their young to show deference to authority. Most species do not raise their young to believe they can change the galaxy." Velthara's tone carried something that might have been admiration. "The humans teach their children that one person can make a difference. It makes them reckless. It makes them dangerous. It makes them extraordinary. Do you truly believe the Williams girl will accomplish great things?" "I believe she has already survived circumstances that would have broken most adults. I believe she loves her sister enough to work herself to death. And I believe that kind of dedication, properly channeled, can reshape worlds." The Queen paused at the elevator that would take them back to the summit levels. "Besides, we need more xenobiologists. The expansion into the outer reaches is revealing species we barely understand. Someone must figure out how to keep them alive." The elevator doors opened. Inside, 3 delegates from the Confederation stood at attention, clearly waiting for transport to the upper floors. They bowed deeply as the Queen entered. "Your Majesty?" the lead delegate said, a Vorton whose translator rendered his words in clipped, formal tones. "We heard about the incident at dinner. Most unfortunate. We trust the human worker will be appropriately disciplined? Velthara's antennae snapped forward so fast the Vortan flinched. Disciplined? Her voice dropped to the temperature of deep space. For what crime? Working too hard? Sacrificing her health for her family? Demonstrating precisely the kind of loyalty and dedication that builds civilizations? The Vortan's skin flushed through several colors, none of them confident. I merely meant the disruption to the summit. Surely there must be consequences. There will be. The Queen's mandibles spread in a smile that showed too many teeth. I am implementing new labor standards across all summit operations. I am establishing a medical scholarship for talented students, and I am ensuring that no being under my protection will ever again have to choose between their education and their family's health. She leaned closer, her compound eyes reflecting the Vortan's nervous face 1,000 times over. Those are the consequences. Does this displease you? No, Your Majesty. Of course not, Your Majesty. Most wise, Your Majesty. The elevator reached the Confederation delegates' floor. They exited with such haste that one of them nearly tripped over his own appendages. When the doors closed again, Thren allowed himself the slightest mandible click of amusement. You enjoyed that, he observed, immensely. Veltara settled against the elevator wall, suddenly feeling the weight of the day. The Vortans have been pushing for reduced protections for service workers across the Alliance. They claim efficiency requires certain sacrifices. Tonight gave me the perfect opportunity to publicly refute that position. By turning a medical emergency into a political statement. By turning a medical emergency into a demonstration of values. The Queen's tone softened. The humans have a saying, never let a crisis go to waste. I am beginning to understand the wisdom in that. The elevator opened onto the royal suite's floor. The guards stationed there saluted crisply as Velthara passed. Inside her rooms, the dinner she had barely touched waited under warming covers, though she had no appetite for it. Instead, she moved to the observation window that looked out over the summit complex and the glittering city beyond. Somewhere below, in the medical wing, 2 human sisters were probably crying together. Overwhelmed by a sudden shift in fortune, Velthara had ruled long enough to know that generosity always had a cost. The scholarship would be questioned. Her motives would be dissected. Other species would wonder if humans were receiving preferential treatment. Let them wonder. She had spent 43 cycles building the Cathari Empire into a force that commanded respect across 17 star systems. She had negotiated treaties, won wars, and outlasted rivals who thought her gender or her size made her weak, but she had also watched her own daughter fight for life after an assassination attempt, had held her through the agony of recovery, had promised herself that no parent should ever face that helplessness without support. Emma's medicine would be covered, Sarah would finish her education, and in 3 years, the Alliance would gain a physician who understood what it meant to fight for something more important than yourself. That was worth any political cost. Behind her, Thren stood at attention, waiting to be dismissed for the night. She could feel his curiosity, even through his perfect military discipline. You have a question, Captain. Permission to speak freely, Your Majesty? Granted. Why this moment? Thren's voice carried genuine puzzlement. You have encountered similar situations before. Workers who struggle, families in need. Why did this particular case demand such immediate intervention? Veltara considered the question, watching lights flicker across the city below. When the child spoke, she said finally, she did not beg, she did not plead for mercy or special treatment. She simply stated facts. Her sister worked to save her. Her sister was not at fault. Her sister deserved protection, not punishment. She was protecting her sibling. She was 7 years old and standing before the ruler of an empire, and her concern was not for herself but for the sister who had sacrificed everything for her. The Queen's antennae drooped slightly, a gesture of deep emotion. That is the kind of being we need more of in this galaxy, Captain. Not fearless warriors or brilliant scientists. We need people who will stand up for those they love even when they are terrified, especially when they are terrified. Thren was silent for a long moment. My youngest sister had the molting sickness when we were children, he said quietly. There was no cure then. My mother worked 3 positions to afford experimental treatments. She collapsed one day in the market. Strangers stepped over her to continue their shopping. Veltara turned from the window to look at her captain. In 12 years of service, he had never mentioned his family.
Did your sister survive?
She serves in the engineering corps now, designing ship systems. His mandibles clicked softly. My mother never fully recovered. The damage from that collapse weakened her hearts. She died 6 cycles ago. I am sorry. She saved my sister. I honor that choice by serving an empire that values such sacrifices. Thren met her eyes directly, a gesture of deep respect between Cathari. You gave that human family what no one gave mine. A chance to save both the sick child and the sibling who fights for her. That is worth any political cost. The Queen felt a familiar pressure in her primary chest, the Cathari response to strong emotion. Then we understand each other, Captain. She dismissed him with a gesture of deep gratitude, then stood alone at the window as the city lights blurred slightly through the membrane that protected her eyes. Tomorrow there would be meetings. Questions. Debates about proper use of royal funds and appropriate protocols for responding to medical emergencies at diplomatic functions. Some would accuse her of being soft. Others would claim she was using human workers for political theater. Let them talk. She had not survived the Court of Thorns by caring what small minds thought of her decisions. The door chimed softly. Velthara sighed, wondering which aide or advisor needed her attention now. Enter. Emma stood in the doorway, dwarfed by the royal guards on either side. She wore borrowed clothes, several sizes too large, and clutched a stuffed animal that had clearly seen better days. I'm sorry, she said immediately, words tumbling out in a rush. The nice doctor said I should stay with Sarah, but I couldn't sleep, and I wanted to say thank you properly. And the guards said I couldn't bother you, but I really needed to tell you something, and... Veltara raised a hand, silencing the verbal flood. She glanced at the guards. Who authorized this visit? Both guards looked uncomfortable. She was very insistent, Your Majesty, one finally ventured. And doctor. Chen confirmed her sister was sleeping peacefully, so we thought... You thought a 7-year-old human could manipulate trained royal guards? The guard's skin flushed darker. Emma stepped forward, chin raised in that defiant angle Velthara was beginning to recognize as a family trait. They didn't let me. I just kept asking. Sarah says persistence is a virtue. Despite everything, Veltara's mandibles clicked with amusement. Your sister is correct. Very well. You have 2 minutes to say whatever drove you to harass my guards. Emma clutched her stuffed animal tighter. I wanted to say thank you. Not just for the money and the medicine. For believing Sarah when she said she could do great things. Lots of people tell her she should quit school and get a real job. They say studying alien biology is a waste of time. They say she should focus on taking care of me instead of chasing dreams. And what do you say to that? I say they're stupid. Emma's voice was fierce. Sarah's going to help people. Lots of people. She just needed someone to believe in her. You gave her that. You gave us both that. So thank you. The child held out the stuffed animal. A worn creature that might have been a bear once, though its species was debatable now. This is Mr. Snuggles. He was my mom's when she was little. She gave him to me when I got sick. He makes things better. Emma's voice wavered slightly. Sarah said you don't have kids, so maybe you'd like someone to keep you company. Mr. Snuggles is really good at that. Veltara stared at the offered toy, feeling something crack in her chest. The child was trying to give her the most valuable thing she owned, a connection to her mother, a source of comfort during illness, a treasure. Emma, she said gently, I cannot accept Mr. Snuggles. He belongs with you, and you helped us when you didn't have to. That means you're a good person, even if you're a queen. Good people shouldn't be alone. The queen knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the small human. Up close, she could see the shadows under Emma's eyes, the too thin wrists, the signs of a body fighting a war with itself. She could also see the same determination that had driven Sarah to work herself to collapse, the same fierce love that made a child stand before an alien monarch without fear. I am not alone, Velthara said softly. I have loyal guards and wise advisors and more responsibilities than you can imagine.
But I appreciate the thought behind your offer. Mr.
Snuggles should stay with you and your sister. You will both need his comfort during the difficult days ahead. Sarah's going to get better now, though, because of you. Sarah's going to finish her education and become an excellent physician, but there will still be hard days. Days when studying is difficult. Days when your medicine makes you feel worse before you feel better. Days when you both miss your mother. The queen gently pushed the stuffed animal back toward Emma. On those days, Mr. Snuggles will remind you that you are loved, that you are protected, that you are not alone. Those are the most important things any being can know. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Will you visit us? Sometimes. Sarah would love to tell you about her studies, and I could show you my drawings. I draw aliens from all the different species. I have 17 different ones now. Veltara felt her secondary heart skip. I would like that very much. Perhaps when you are both recovered, we could arrange a proper visit. You could show me your drawings, and your sister could tell me about her research. You mean it? I am a queen, child. My word is binding across 17 star systems. I do not offer it lightly. Emma threw her arms around Veltara's neck in another spontaneous embrace, stuffed bear squashed between them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're the best queen in the whole galaxy. Over the child's head, Velthara met the eyes of her guards. Both were carefully studying the ceiling, but she could see the slight tremor in their mandibles that indicated suppressed laughter. Return to your sister, the queen said, gently extracting herself from Emma's grip. She will worry if she wakes and finds you gone. Okay. Good night, Your Majesty. And thank you for everything. Emma scampered off. Mr. Snuggles clutched tight, the guards falling into step behind her to ensure she made it back to the medical wing safely. Velthara stood in her suddenly quiet room, feeling the warmth where small human arms had wrapped around her. 43 cycles of rule, countless diplomatic victories, treaties that would be studied for generations. But this moment, this small gesture from a sick child trying to comfort a lonely queen, this felt more important than any of them. She returned to the window, watching the city lights blur and sharpen as her membrane flickered. Tomorrow the real work would begin, implementing the new labor standards, establishing the scholarship program, defending her decisions to delegates who would question everything. But tonight, she had given 2 human children hope, and one of them had given her something far more valuable in return. The knowledge that kindness, however small, still mattered in a galaxy that often seemed too large and cold to care. That was worth protecting. That was worth fighting for. That was worth every political cost she would pay tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after. Somewhere in the medical wing, 2 sisters slept peacefully for the first time in months, their futures suddenly bright with possibility. And, in the royal suite, a queen who had survived assassination attempts and political coups and 43 cycles of cutthroat galactic politics stood alone and smiled. The galaxy was vast and strange and full of beings who would never understand each other completely. But sometimes, in the space between species and cultures and worlds, something simple and true could bridge the impossible distances. A waitress who wouldn't quit, a child who wouldn't stop fighting, a queen who wouldn't look away. 3 beings who had learned that strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about knowing when to reach out, when to hold on, when to lift up someone who was falling. Velthara closed her eyes and made a silent promise to the mother these girls had lost, to every parent who had ever fought for their child, to every being who had ever sacrificed everything for love. She would protect them, guide them, give them every chance to become the extraordinary beings she knew they could be. And when Sarah Williams graduated and joined the Cathari Medical Corps in 3 years, when she began solving the impossible problems that plagued cross-species medicine, when she saved lives that no one else could save, the galaxy would know that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their courage or their stubborn refusal to quit. It was their capacity to love so fiercely that they would work themselves to death to protect it, and that any species wise enough to recognize that strength, to nurture it, to build a galaxy where such love could flourish instead of breaking, that species deserved to be called civilized. The Queen of the Cathari Empire stood at her window and watched the dawn begin to break over the summit complex. Tomorrow would bring challenges, questions, resistance, but also possibility, hope, the chance to build something better. All because a waitress fainted and a child refused to let her sister's sacrifice go unnoticed. The galaxy, Velthara decided, was full of unexpected teachers. She was grateful to have learned from these 2. And she would spend however many cycles she had left making sure their lessons spread far beyond this one night, this one city, this one world. Because that was what strength looked like. Not standing alone at the top, but reaching down to lift others up. Again and again. Till everyone could stand together.